أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه ورحمة الله وبركاته. In our last lesson, we were speaking about the good wife, and we were mentioning a tradition. We read a tradition from Ahlul Bait alayhim salam, speaking about not only the good wife, but the best wife or the best woman. And the reason we're looking at these traditions is, we said when we're looking at spousal treatment, how a husband should treat his wife and how a wife should treat her husband, we have ahkam, we have Islamic laws that are mentioned in the jurisprudential books. These ahkam will teach us the bare minimum that should be done to ensure that the husband is receiving his rights and the wife is receiving her rights. Jayyid. But we also said that when we look at the ahadith of Ahlul Bait alayhim salam, we understand from Ahlul Bait that we Muslims are not obligated to simply abide by what is mentioned in the books of jurisprudence regarding spousal treatment. On the contrary, if we look at the traditions that speak about husbands and how they should treat their wives, we understand that Allah and Ahlul Bait alayhim salam want husbands to be what? Gentle with their wives, to be gentlemen, to be individuals who care for their wives, who help their wives, who support their wives, etc. And the opposite is true. When we look at the narrations of Ahlul Bait alayhim salam, we understand that Allah and Ahlul Bait salamullah alayhim want wives to be individuals who strive to please their husbands. So they don't only abide by what's wajib, they go beyond what's wajib. So they try their best, they exert effort to make the husband happy, to make the husband pleased, to please him, Jayyid, to support him, so on and so forth. So we read a tradition regarding the good wife, Jayyid, and the tradition made a very interesting and bold statement indicating that the good wife or the best wife will strive to please her husband even if she's angry or even if she's angered by him. Now, we did say that this does not mean a man has the green light to come and oppress his wife. Oppression is bad, regardless of the oppressor. Any form of oppression is refuted and is bad, whether it's coming from a man or a woman, a husband or a wife, an elder or a youngster. Any form of dhulm, any form of oppression is refuted, period. But we said, in case the husband makes a mistake which angers the wife, obviously here we're talking about small mistakes or normal mistakes, then it would be good for her to do what? To remain patient, not to go berserk. It would be good for her to remain patient and to deal with the matter in a wise manner, such that, due to her behavior, the problem would, or the problem would fade away, Jayyid, or the mistake would be disregarded. Makes sense? Is the opposite true? Yes. If a lady commits a small or a normal mistake, it would be wise for the husband not to make a big deal out of it. Jayyid? Today, inshallah, we're going to read another tradition on this regard. One or two traditions, inshallah, which confirm whatever we mentioned today in the introduction and whatever we mentioned a few weeks ago. And that is that a lady is not obligated to abide by whatever is mentioned in the jurisprudential books when it comes to spousal treatment. She can go beyond that. Okay? She can go beyond that. A husband might tell his wife, Mathalan, bring me a cup of water. She might tell him, I'm not obligated to do so. Is she obligated to give him the cup of water? No, she's not. She's not. Would it be good for her to do it? Yes. Does Allah Ta'ala want her to do that? Yes. Does Allah make it wajib on her? No. Makes sense? But Allah encourages her to do it. The husband, Mathalan, tells her, my wife, can you iron my shirt? Jayed, I have an appointment. I want to look, classy. I want to look nice. Can you iron my shirt and my clothing for me? She can tell him what? It's not wajib for me to do it. But is that the response that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants her to give him? No. Allah Azza wa Jal wants her to help her husband. Jayed, of course, now we're talking about the wife because we talked about the husband a few weeks ago. Jayed. And as I said, we started with the men before we came to the women. Yes, Muhammad Ali.
Things such as asking for almost a favor.
A favor. No, taking care of the house chores, مثلا, that's not wajib. Fadal. No. Right? But think about this. If he asks her for a cup of water and she says no, and then she asks him for a cup of water and he says no, Jayyid, what's going to happen here? What kind of a household is this? Right? It's a household of enemies, not a household of friends, not a household that has, a husband and wife who are living together in peace and harmony. واضح؟ So if we go to the book Wasail al-Shia, we have a tradition by Imam Abu Ja'far alayhi salam. He says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله إن من القسم المصلح or من القسم المصلح للمرء المسلم أن تكون له امرأة. The tradition continues, but let me translate what it says here before we continue. The Prophet speaks about certain things that are given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, certain forms of sustenance that are given by Allah Azza wa Jal. And he speaks about forms of sustenance that bring a person from one state to another, such that they ameliorate the state of the Muslim, they ameliorate the state of the individual. Jayyid? For example, a person might be going through poverty. Allah Ta'ala bestows upon him what? A good amount of wealth. Because of that wealth, his state is ameliorated from a physical perspective or a financial perspective. Makes sense? So you have certain forms of sustenance, certain gifts of God Azza wa Jal, gifts that come from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that will ameliorate your current state. One of those is what? Al-mar'a. He says a lady. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants a person, a lady meaning a wife, that has the traits that you shall hear. That lady will be basically a form of sustenance or a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that ameliorate the state of the Muslim man. What are the traits of this lady? إِذَا نَظَرَ إِلَيْهَا سَرَّتْهُ. When he looks at her, she makes him happy. Meaning simply looking at her causes the man to rejoice. Let alone what happens to him when, for example, she speaks to him, or when she treats him well, or when she tries to relieve him from distress. So simply looking at her makes him happy. What else, Ya Rasulullah? وَإِنْ غَابَ عَنْهَا حَفِظَتْهُ. When he's absent, when he leaves her and he's absent, she protects him or she preserves him. What do you understand from this word, حَفِظَتْهُ? How could she do hifz? How could she protect or preserve him when he's absent? Muhammad Ali. Ahsant. Jayyid. So she preserves his image, or say his reputation, and she also preserves his belongings, his wealth. Okay? Ahmad, you had a comment? That's also a way through which she can preserve or protect him. Sahih. Sahih. So what we can understand, Afwan Ghayur, go ahead.
Just like in the general sense, when we talk about the mu'mineen to each other, is that they defend each other when the other is absent. Would we apply the same here as well?
That she defends her husband? Yani the hadith can be understood in that way, yes. That is one interpretation for hafidatuhu, yes. But the least we can understand from the word hafidatuhu, she protects or preserves him, is number one, she does not cheat on him when he's away. Does that mean she can cheat on him when he's present? No, of course not. But we're talking about not cheating on him, God forbid, when he's absent, because when he's absent, there's more room for that. Sah? It's easier to do so. But obviously a good lady, let alone, a good wife, a good believing wife, will never do so. Will never think of cheating on her husband. What's interesting is this issue is looked down upon greatly even by non-Muslims. Yani you don't have to be Muslim to know that cheating on your husband is not only bad, but it's extremely bad. So even non-Muslim ladies know this issue. They know it for a fact that cheating on your husband is not only bad, it's extremely bad. So a believing lady will not even think of this matter. Jayyid. However, unfortunately, some men, they cross their limits, and sometimes they try to lure ladies into haram. They try to even lure married ladies into indecency, into forbidden deeds. So here, the Prophet says, وَإِنْ غَابَ عَنْهَا حَفِظَتْهُ. When he's absent, she protects her husband or she preserves him, meaning she does not cheat on him. That's the first meaning we can understand from the word حَفِظَتْهُ. Number two, the second meaning is that she will protect or preserve his wealth. Obviously, when he leaves his wife, usually he will leave her where in his own house. So his possessions will be under her control. He might leave, his bank cards with his wife, right? He might leave with her a large amount of money. But if she's a good wife, what will she do? She will protect his wealth. She will not misuse it. She will not use it in a way that that is unlawful, number one, and in a way that disturbs the husband, number two. Yeah, حفظته literally means she protects him or preserves him. وإياكم. وإن أمرها أطاعته. The third trait is that when he commands her to do something, she obeys him. Realize the Prophet ﷺ doesn't mention what he tells her to do. Yes, we understand from other narrations and from the Quran that if he commands her to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then she should not obey him. It's quite unfortunate and sad to say that certain men command their wives to disobey Allah. I've heard of cases where the husband commands his wife to remove hijab. Imagine, she's muhajjaba, and he tells her to remove the hijab. In fact, he tells her that if she does not remove the hijab, he will divorce her, which is very sad, very unfortunate. In this case, should she remove the hijab? What do you think, Shabab? Should she? Of course not, right? Allah's obedience comes first. So even if he's going to divorce her, she should keep the hijab on. Huh? Well, it depends on their case, right? Nonetheless, so if he commands her to disobey Allah Ta'ala, then she should not obey him. But the Prophet here in this hadith, he says, in amaraha ata'athu. If he commands her to do something, if he tells her to do something, then she'll listen. So if he tells her, bring me a cup of water, she'll bring it to him, right? Why? Because she's his slave? No, she's not his slave. She's his wife because she loves him. She respects him. She wants to make him happy. And the more she, the more good treatment she shows her husband, the more she elevates in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The opposite is true, as we said a few weeks ago. The better we treat our wives, the more we elevate in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if he tells her, matalan, to iron his clothes, then yes, she should iron the clothes. She'll be receiving hasanat because of that service. If he tells her, matalan, to help him, to lend him a hand in a particular matter within the house, inside the house, then let her help him. That's an opportunity to gain hasanat, to gain good deeds. So from the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, when he says, إِذَا نَظَرَ إِلَيْهَا سَرَّتْهُ وَإِنْ غَابَ عَنْهَا حَفِظَتْهُ وَإِنْ أَمَرَهَا أَطَاعَتْهُ, we understand that Rasulullah ﷺ is telling women, you're not obligated to simply abide by whatever is mentioned in fiqh. You can do more. In fact, we want you to do more. This is one tradition. There's another tradition also in وسائل الشيعة عن أبي جعفر عليه السلام قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال الله عز وجل. So الباقر الباقر عليه السلام mentions that Rasulullah said that Allah said the following. This is known as hadith Qudsi, right? Allah is talking, but the hadith, the word is not part of the Quran. So it's not Quran. It's what we call hadith Qudsi. What does Allah say? He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِذَا أَرَدْتُ أَنْ أَجْمَعَ لِلْمُسْلِمِ خَيْرَ الدُّنْيَا وَخَيْرَ الْآخِرَةِ جَعَلْتُ لَهُ قَلْبًا خَاشِعًا. Allah says, if I want to give the Muslim both goodnesses, the goodness of this world and the goodness of the hereafter, I will give him the following. Which means, if someone possesses what you shall hear, this person technically possesses the goodness of this world and the next, or say he possesses what leads him to khayr ad-dunya wal akhirah, to the goodness of this world and the next. جعلت له قلبا خاشعا. Number one, I will give him a heart, meaning a soul, that feels khushu', that feels a sense of humility for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, when that person performs salat, he won't only be uttering Quranic verses and invocations. He won't be simply moving his body. He will feel a change in his soul. He will feel a sense of say, fright or humility as he is praying. a sense of calmness. Same goes with dua. Someone who has qalb khasha, when he performs dua, when he reads dua kumail, for example, or munajat al-ta'ibin, he feels that he is absorbed by the supplication and that he's being affected by the supplication. Perhaps in certain segments he cries. And that's a result of the affection. That's a result of what he's feeling as he is reading or reciting the supplication. So number one is al-qalb al-khasha. Then he says, وَلِسَانًا ذَاكِرًا, and I will give him a tongue that does dhikr, that remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that mentions Allah azza wa jal. There are people out there who, like you, inshallah, who mention Allah azza wa jal abundantly every day. Even when they're sitting down with their friends, with their companions, they mention Allah. The word مثلا subhanallah is repeated by them numerous times every day. لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So they do dhikr even when they're simply, walking in the park or walking in the market, etc., or sitting down with their friends. And that's a big blessing, because al-lisan al-dhakir, believe it or not, will notify its owner. Will notify him of what? Of God. Sometimes we might go through a state of sahu, a state of unawareness, and we somewhat forget Allah Ta'ala. But we've gotten used to mentioning Allah Azza wa Jal. So all of a sudden we find ourselves saying, for example, La ilaha illallah or Subhanallah, whilst we are in that state of sahu. So the tongue here does what? It notifies you, wake up. Allah is watching. Allah is watching you. So one of the benefits of having lisan dhakir is that the lisan itself, the tongue itself, will notify its owner of God subhanahu wa ta'ala when the owner of the tongue somewhat forgets Allah azza wa jal.
The zakira here, could it be applied to the person then? Because the tongue is reminding the person?
The tongue is the thing doing dhikr. ذاكرا. Make sense? Yeah. وجسدا على البلاء صابرا. Number 3, I will give him a body that will endure patience when that person is afflicted with trials.
What is it called in Arabic? وجسد
وجسدا على البلاء صابرا. Enduring patience is not easy. Practicing patience or observing patience, enduring patience when someone goes through a heavy calamity is not easy. Patience is more, it's bitterful. But the third blessing is what? Having this body that can actually endure and resist the bitterness of patience whilst the human being is afflicted with trials and or heavy trials. Next, وَزَوْجَةً مُؤْمِنَةً تَسُرُّهُ. Subhanallah. And I'll give him a wife who believes, meaning she believes in Allah, believes in Ahlul Bait, believes in the truth. تَسُرُّهُ إِذَا نَظَرَ إِلَيْهَا. She will make him happy if he gazes at her, if he looks at her. وَتَحْفَظُهُ إِذَا غَابَ عَنْهَا فِي نَفْسِهَا وَمَالِهِ. She will protect him or preserve him when, meaning she'll protect or preserve her husband when he's absent, when he leaves her and is absent, through her own self, في نفسها, and through his wealth. Meaning, as we said earlier, she will not misuse his money. She will not, for example, waste all of his money. when he's gone, or a large chunk of his money when he's gone. She will not use his money in gambling or in other forms of disobedience. In fact, she will not use the money in a way that disturbs the husband.
Sheikh, how do you say it in Arabic for number 4?
وزوجة مؤمنة تسره إذا نظر إليها وتحفظه إذا غاب عنها في نفسها وماله. I sent you the hadith. It's on the chat section. As for preserving him or protecting him through her own self, we said one interpretation is what? She will not cheat on him, God forbid, when he's absent. Another interpretation is that she will not behave in a manner that ruins his image or ruins his reputation when he's absent. So she'll remember, I'm a mu'mina, and I have to protect my image and my reputation. But now I'm not only a mu'mina, I'm imra'at fulan, I'm married to this individual. And he also has a reputation. Now that he's gone, he's on a trip, for example, and he's gone for a few weeks or a few months, I should observe my actions carefully and ensure that I do not do anything that will deform his image or mine. واضح? So if she misbehaves during his absence, she should remember that misbehaving might not only harm her, but it might also harm her husband. SubhanAllah, the hadith here glorifies the mu'minah. It glorifies the believing lady. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers the believing lady to be what? To be a big blessing, to be part of the things which lead a person to receiving the goodness of what? This world and the next. For the hadith is greatly praising al-mu'minat, greatly praising ladies who are believers, believing ladies. Any questions on this hadith? No? Let's see how much time we have left. Okay. We have time for one last hadith. After understanding that the husband and the wife, both of them, are not obligated to simply abide by what is mentioned in the jurisprudential books regarding spousal treatment, we move to a new point, which is before marriage, or as they're in that process, in the process of getting married, it would be very wise that the husband and the wife agree to appoint a judge who will judge between them in case they disagree on a particular matter and the disagreement continues. Disagreements are bound to happen because when two people get married, these two people are not identical. Even if they're cousins, yes, even if they're cousins. Even if they were, raised in the same house, matalan, suppose you had two cousins who were raised by the same individual, but they're cousins. Can they get married when they grow up? Yes. They're not siblings. The fact that they were raised in the same in the same atmosphere by the same individual does not mean that they're identical. Look at yourself and your siblings. You'll see similarities, but you'll also see what differences. And sometimes you might see grave differences between two siblings, let alone the differences you see amongst cousins or people who are not even related. Right. So disagreements are bound to happen. Problems are bound to arise, most likely. If they're able to solve the problem, then that's good. That's beautiful. If they're able to get rid of the disagreement, then that's also beautiful. But what if they face a particular issue, they disagree on what should be done, and each individual, the husband and the wife, holds to his or her opinion, In better terms, each one of them refuses to give in to his or her spouse. Then what should be done here? Here, referring to the judge, referring to the just judge who can judge between them in a fair manner, who can judge between them fairly, would be very wise. Who is that judge? Or what is that judge? It is Al-Thaqalan, the Quran and Ahlul Bait alayhim salatu wassalam. They've disagreed on a particular issue. Okay, let's look at what Ahlul Bait say alayhim salam. Let's look at what the Quran says. And we'll follow whatever the Quran or Ahlul Bait say. Salamullah alayhim. It's as simple as that. Jayid. If they're both mu'mineen, if she's a mu'min and she's a mu'mina, then they both believe in the Quran and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And they both believe that the Quran and Ahlul Bayt will never pass an incorrect judgment. They both believe that the Quran is adil, it is just. And Ahlul Bayt are udul, they're the just judges, salamullahi alayhim, they're infallible. So refer to what Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam say and to what the Quran says, and then go by what Al-Thaqalan say. It's as simple as that. Okay? This is something we learn from who? From Ali and Fatima, salamullah alayhim. The two infallibles, who never went through spousal problems, as we said yesterday. They never disagreed on a particular matter. But even then, one day they went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa so he may judge between them, to teach us a lesson, to teach us, fallible men and fallible women, if you ever have a disagreement amongst each other, then refer to the flawless judge. Who is the flawless judge? The infallible, right? Rasulullah, Ahlul Bayt, Al-Quran Al-Kareem. Fadal Ahmed.
Appoint a judge that follows the Quran and Ahlul Bait, or to just go directly?
No, go to the Quran and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam if they know what the Quran and Ahlul Bayt say. If, however, they don't know what the Quran or Ahlul Bayt say on that regard, then obviously you refer to who? To the scholars or the house of students who know. Jayid? For example, we can give many examples here. The husband disagrees with his wife on a particular matter. She has, let's say, an amount of money in her bank account that was given to her by her dad, by her father. She owns that money. It was given to her as a gift by her dad. Her husband wants her to use that money so he can pay the bills, or that both of them can pay their hydro bill or electricity bill or pay their taxes, etc. And they disagree. She tells him, you know what, مثلا, you're my husband, I love you, etc. But I want to keep this money. It has been given to me by my father as a gift, and I want to keep it aside for a certain reason. Now he persists and he says, "La, no, I'm the husband, I'm the guardian, and you need to give me that money." They disagree on this matter. So here, if they refer to Ahlul Bait or the Quran, they'll understand that the husband is responsible of providing for his wife. She is not responsible of providing sustenance, of providing, for example, food or water or other forms of sustenance to him. Jayyid. He's the one who's responsible of sustaining her financially, but she's not responsible of doing that. So if they refer to the Quran, Ahlul Bait, the husband will realize, oops, I made a mistake. It's on me to provide for her, but it's not on her to provide for me. Again, we're talking about what? About money, food, drinks, and the likes. Jayyid? So by referring to Ahlul Bait alayhim salam and the Holy Quran, they'll know exactly who's right and who's wrong and what should be done. Let me quickly finish the lesson by reading the tradition that speaks about Ali and Fatima alayhim salam and how they used Rasulullah as a judge. This is a tradition that I've mentioned multiple times on the minbar. I think I will keep on mentioning it until I pass away. Let me send it to you. I won't read the full tradition. I'll be part of it for today. عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام عن أبي Imam الصادق عليه السلام says that his father said قال تقاضى علي وفاطمة إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في الخدمة. So Ali and Fatima, they came to Rasulullah and they appointed him as a judge. He says تقاضى. So they appointed the Prophet as a judge to judge between them, although they're infallible and they know their duties, but they're teaching us a lesson. You fallible human beings, fallible spouses, should appoint an infallible judge to judge between you in case you run into problems that you cannot solve or into disagreements that you cannot get rid of. They came to Rasulullah and they wanted him to judge between them regarding what? Regarding khidmah. Who is responsible of what? What's Ali's responsibility as a husband? And what's Fatima's responsibility as a wife? Salamullah alayhima. فَقَضَى عَلَى فَاطِمَةِ بِخِدْمَةِ مَا دُونَ الْبَابِ. The Prophet told Fatima that she was responsible of taking care of whatever lies behind the door, meaning to take care of the house chores. وَقَضَى عَلَى عَلِيٍّ بِمَا خَلْفَهُ. And he told Ali alayhi salam to take care of whatever lied outside the door, meaning he passed the following judgment: O Ali, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are responsible of bringing food and other forms of sustenance to your family. You're the one who goes out to work and you bring the money, you bring the food, the medication, for example, the drinks to your house. Zahra does what? She takes care of the house. She works inside. Ali does what? He works outside. Now there's what? There's a balance. Each spouse has his or her role. The husband works outside. The wife works inside. There's a balance. There's a balance that has been created. This is one of the Islamic systems. And I'm going to conclude the lesson with this word. Perhaps we'll continue in the upcoming lesson. This is one of the Islamic systems that is being greatly fought today. Greatly fought by one or multiple movements. There are groups that do not want, not want to see a state of peace and harmony existing within households or within Islamic households. And because of that, they strive to pull the Muslims away from the system in one way or another. We'll continue, inshallah, in the upcoming days. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala al-Mustafa Muhammadin wa alihi al-Tahirin.